You're listening to Dark Trail Confessions. If you enjoy these stories, please don't forget to like and subscribe tonight. I'm sharing 5 true, scary stories to listen to in the rain. These aren't urban legends or fictional tales. They're real experiences, moments where something went wrong and someone nearly didn't make it home. So settle in, put your headphones on, and let the rain wash over you. Here are 5 stories to listen to in the rain. Story 1. They knew I was in the closet. For months, I thought the worst thing happening in my life was an online creep who wouldn't take no for an answer. It started on a dating app. His photos looked normal, his messages polite enough, but something about him felt off. Too intense, too fast. He asked personal questions early on: where I lived, what time I got home, whether I lived alone. I stopped replying. That's when the calls started. We'd matched on a dating app late one night when I couldn't sleep. His profile looked normal, maybe a little too normal. Smiling photos, generic bio. Nothing that screamed red flag. But within a few days of messaging, something felt wrong. He asked questions that didn't fit the stage we were at, where I worked, what time I usually got home, whether I lived alone or with roommates. I brushed it off as awkward curiosity, but my stomach tightened every time his name popped up on my phone. When I stopped replying, he didn't stop messaging. At first it was polite follow-ups. Hey, just checking in. Did I say something wrong? Then the tone shifted. Calls started coming from numbers I didn't recognize, one after another. Sometimes 10 in a row, sometimes at 3 in the morning. Texts followed, emails, social media requests, fake accounts, messages that alternated between apologetic and angry. One minute it was, please just talk to me. The next, you're being rude. I deserve an explanation. I blocked everything I could, changed privacy settings, deleted apps. The calls kept coming. By the time it had been going on for months, I was exhausted. My phone felt like a threat in my hand. Every vibration made my chest tighten. I told myself he didn't know where I lived. I was wrong. That Friday night, my roommates were going out. I remember watching them leave, the sound of laughter and the front door closing behind them. I stayed in, curled up on the couch, rain tapping softly against the windows. Around 11:40 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Didn't answer. Then I heard the front door handle move. Just once. Soft. Like someone testing it. I held my breath, listening. It happened again. Harder this time. Then came the sound of wood cracking. My body reacted before my mind caught up. I ran. I locked my bedroom door and shoved myself into the closet, pulling clothes over my head, pressing my hand over my mouth to keep from breathing too loud. The door downstairs burst open. Footsteps. More than one set. 2 male voices, low and casual, like they had all the time in the world. They moved through the house slowly, deliberately, opening doors, knocking things over. One of them laughed. And then one of them said, "We know you're in here." I squeezed my eyes shut. And my phone buzzed again in my hand. A message from an unknown number. Stop hiding. I typed a message to my best friend with shaking fingers, barely able to see through the tears. Someone is in the house. Please call the police. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. The handle moved. One of them whispered, "Come out, we just want to talk." I don't remember how long I stayed like that. Silent, frozen, waiting to die. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door, I could see the handle turning more slowly, just enough to make the latch click. One of them whispered my name. Not loudly, not angrily, like he already knew I was listening. Then the sound of sirens broke through the rain. At first they were distant, easy to miss. I almost thought I imagined them. The men froze. One of them swore under his breath. The other said, "We don't have much time." They moved fast after that. Drawers slammed. Footsteps rushed through the hallway. I heard the back door open. The sirens grew louder. Then shouting. Then silence. I stayed in the closet long after the police announced themselves. I couldn't move. My body felt locked in place, like if I stepped out, whoever was hunting me would still be there. When I finally did, my legs gave out. One of the officers sat me down and asked if I recognized the men. I didn't, but they recognized me. One of the men was armed with a knife, duct tape, and rope, and had my name written on a piece of paper in one of his pockets. My full name, my address, my work schedule. The officer's face changed when he told me that. A few days later, detectives came back to talk to me. They'd searched one of the men's apartments. Inside his bedroom, they found printed photos of me taped to the walls, screenshots from my social media, pictures taken from outside my house. One photo showed me unlocking my front door. On his bedside table, they found sickening pictures of women being tortured. They told me they believed I wasn't the first woman they'd followed. I moved out less than 2 weeks later, and I now live in a different state, and even now, years later, I still can't sleep in complete silence. Rain helps, because if there's noise, I won't hear someone trying the door. Story 2. I wasn't alone on the walk home. I used to think I was careful. I didn't wear headphones at night. I kept my phone charged. I walked quickly and stayed aware of my surroundings. That's why it took me longer than it should have to realize I was being followed. I worked late shifts at a small restaurant on the edge of town. By the time I clocked out, it was usually close to midnight. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavier the longer you're in it. I walked the same route home every night, past the closed pharmacy, down a residential street lined with parked cars, one final stretch before my apartment building. Routine felt safe. Until one night, it didn't. It started with footsteps. At first, I told myself they weren't mine. I slowed down. The footsteps slowed. I stopped completely and pretended to check my phone. They stopped too. I waited, heart thudding in my chest, listening to the rain hit the pavement. When I started walking again, so did they. I crossed the street. A moment later, the footsteps crossed too. That's when my stomach dropped. I pulled my phone out and pretended to make a call, holding it to my ear even though the screen was dark. "Yeah, I'm almost home," I said out loud, hoping whoever was behind me would hear. The footsteps didn't stop. They got closer. I ducked into the doorway of a closed shop, pressing myself against the cold brick, barely breathing. A man walked past me, then he stopped. Slowly, he turned around. He smiled. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't aggressive either. It was casual, like we'd run into each other on purpose. He asked if I was okay, asked if I was lost, asked where I was headed so late at night. I lied. I said my boyfriend was waiting for me just around the corner. His smile faded slightly. He stood there too long, close enough that I could smell alcohol on his breath. Then he said, I'll walk you. It's not safe out here. I said no. He didn't leave. I walked away, forcing myself not to run. I could feel him behind me again, matching my pace. When my apartment building finally came into view, relief flooded through me so fast it made me dizzy. I fumbled with my keys at the entrance. I heard him stop behind me. I didn't turn around. I got inside and locked the door, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my keys. From my window, I watched him stand across the street. He didn't look angry. He didn't look frustrated. He just stood there, watching. After nearly 10 minutes, he finally walked away. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found a note under my door. No name, no explanation, just 4 words written in shaky pen. You shouldn't walk alone. I called the police. They took a report, asked questions. The officer gave me his card and told me to be extra careful when walking by myself at night, and said he'd have a night patrol periodically scan the area that night. The next morning, my neighbor knocked on my door. She asked if I'd heard anything strange overnight. She told me someone had been trying door handles in the building around 3 a.m. I knew exactly who it was. A week later, the police called me back. They'd arrested a man a few blocks away after a woman reported being followed. When they searched his backpack, they found multiple handwritten notes, descriptions of women, times, routes. One of them described me. The officer told me my report might have prevented something worse. I still don't walk that route anymore. I don't trust routine. And every time I hear footsteps behind me in the rain, my body remembers what my mind tries to forget. I changed my routine after that. Took different streets, different times, it didn't matter. Because later, when the police showed me his notes, I saw something I couldn't explain. He hadn't just written down my route. He'd written down all of them, every way I could have gone home. Story 3. Something was walking around the camper. My boyfriend and I had only been dating for 6 months when we decided to take the camper out. It was his idea. A long weekend off-grid. No phones, no noise. Just the 2 of us in the woods. He rented a small camper barely big enough for a bed, a table, and a kitchenette. I remember joking that if one of us got murdered, no one would find us for weeks. He laughed. I wish he hadn't. We parked just before sunset deep in a stretch of forest that didn't feel like a campsite, just a clearing at the end of a narrow dirt road. The kind of place you don't accidentally end up. By the time we finished setting up, rain had started falling to light at first, tapping softly against the roof. It felt cozy, safe. That feeling didn't last. Around 9 p.m., while we were lying on the bed watching the rain streak down the windows, I heard footsteps outside. Not rushing, not heavy, measured, crunching leaves. I sat up and asked if he heard it too. He did. Probably an animal, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. The footsteps slowed, then stopped, right beside the camper. By 10, the rain was heavier. So were the sounds. Footsteps again, this time circling us, once, twice. I reached for his hand and felt how cold it was. He turned off the interior lights. The footsteps stopped instantly. That was the first moment I knew something was wrong. A few minutes later, something brushed along the side of the camper. Not a scrape, not an accident, a slow drag, like someone running their fingers along the metal. I pressed my face into his shoulder and whispered that we shouldn't make a sound. That's when the knocking started. 3 taps. Slow, deliberate, not asking, testing. Then a voice came through the rain. Male. Calm. Too calm. Hello? My boyfriend mouthed, "Don't answer." The voice continued, "You shouldn't be out here." It didn't sound threatening, it sounded certain. The door handle moved. Just slightly. Like whoever was outside was learning how much pressure it would take. Locked. The footsteps backed away, then began again. Slow circles. Patient. Waiting. We stayed frozen like that for hours, listening, counting footsteps, listening to the rain drown out everything else. Eventually the sounds stopped. The forest went quiet again. Too quiet. When morning came, the rain had turned the ground to mud. We stepped outside together. Bare footprints were everywhere, all around the camper, dozens of them, human, deep. But there were no footprints leading away, none. And as we were pulling onto the dirt road to leave, my boyfriend stopped the camper and told me not to look back. I did anyway. Written into the dirt on the back panel, smeared by a finger, were 5 words. I know you heard me. Story 4. There was someone living in the loft. I moved into the flat because it was cheap. That should have been the first warning. It was an old converted building above a closed-down shop. The kind of place landlords describe as full of character, when what they really mean is untouched for decades. Slanted ceilings, exposed beams, a narrow loft space accessed by a hatch in the hallway ceiling. When I asked what the loft was for, the landlord shrugged. "Storage," he said. "Previous tenant never used it." Neither did I, at least not at first. The first few weeks were uneventful except for one thing. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, unsure why. Sometimes I felt like I'd been dreaming, but I could never remember what about. Other times I woke up with the strange sensation that I'd been talking in my sleep, like my mouth was dry. I chalked it up to stress, new place, new routines. That's what I told myself. Then the noises started. Soft sounds at first, rain. A faint creak above the ceiling, like wood settling. I told myself it was the building adjusting to temperature changes. Old places make noise. Everyone knows that. But then it became more specific. Footsteps, slow ones, pacing, directly above my bedroom. I work late shifts, so my sleep schedule was already strange. I'd lie awake in the early hours of the morning, staring at the ceiling, counting the steps, back and forth, always stopping directly above my bed. When I mentioned it to a friend, she laughed and said it was probably rats. Rats don't walk in straight lines, and they don't pause. One morning I noticed something missing from my kitchen, just a small thing, a loaf of bread, half gone the night before, now reduced to a single slice. I assumed I'd misremembered. Then my milk started disappearing. Then my phone charger moved. Always subtly, always deniable. That's the worst kind of fear. The kind where you're not sure if you're losing your mind. One night after another restless sleep, filled with half-remembered dreams, I woke suddenly around 3 a.m. The flat was silent, too silent, and I heard it. A soft thud above me, followed by movement, slow footsteps. I sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling, my pulse hammering in my ears. The footsteps stopped directly over me and stayed there. The next evening, I came home early from work, exhausted and irritated, determined to finally confront whatever was going on. I stood beneath the loft hatch, staring at it. It looked exactly as it always had. Closed. Still. I dragged a chair beneath it, climbed up, and pushed open the loft hatch. The smell hit me first. Stale, sour, human. I shone my phone's flashlight inside. There was a mattress up there. Not old storage, a mattress, blankets, empty food wrappers. And on the far wall, faint but unmistakable, scratch marks, tall ones, carved into the wood at shoulder height. I climbed down, shaken, and locked myself in the bathroom, calling the police with hands so unsteady I'd dropped my phone twice. They arrived quickly. 2 officers went up into the loft. I listened to their footsteps above me, the same ones I'd been hearing for weeks. When they came back down, they didn't look surprised. They looked tired. They told me a man had been living up there for months. He'd entered through a loose roof panel from the neighboring building. He'd been watching me, listening, waiting until I slept. They found a notebook stuffed under the mattress. Every page had dates, times, my schedule, what time I left for work, what time I came home, what time the lights went out. I moved out the next day, didn't pack properly, didn't clean, didn't look back. Weeks later, the police called me again. They'd caught him. He'd been arrested for breaking into another flat, another loft, another woman. Before they arrested him, one of the officers asked if I wanted to see what they found. I said no. He showed me anyway. Inside the notebook, beneath the dates and times, was a final line. Written smaller than the rest, like it wasn't meant to be noticed. I talk to her while she sleeps. Story 5. He offered me a ride. I broke down just after midnight. The road was empty in both directions. A narrow stretch of backcountry highway cutting through miles of farmland and trees. I'd just finished a late shift and was driving home. Rain pouring hard enough that my headlights barely reached beyond the hood. When the engine died, it felt sudden, final. I tried restarting it 3 times before accepting I wasn't going anywhere. No signal, no nearby houses, just rain. I stayed in the car at first, doors locked, hazard lights flashing uselessly into the dark. That's when headlights appeared behind me. Slow, careful. They pulled over several car lengths back and stayed there, idling. I watched them in the mirror, my chest tight, fingers clenched around my phone. The driver didn't get out right away. He waited. Eventually, a man stepped out and walked towards me, hands visible, moving slowly like he didn't want to spook me. He looked normal, middle-aged, clean jacket, calm voice. "Car trouble?" he asked through the rain. I nodded through the cracked window. He offered to take me into town, said he lived just a few minutes down the road. I told him I'd already called for help. I hadn't. He smiled anyway. "No problem," he said. "I'll just wait with you." That made my stomach drop. We stood in silence while the rain hammered down. He asked where I was coming from, where I was headed, whether anyone was expecting me. I lied. He listened carefully, too carefully. Then he glanced back toward my car and said, "You shouldn't stay in there. It's not safe on a road like this." That was when I noticed his passenger door was already open. I don't know why I got in. Maybe it was the cold, the exhaustion, the way the rain made everything feel smaller. As we drove, the road stretched on, longer than it should have. No street lights, no turns. I asked how far his place was. "Just ahead," he said. He said it 3 times, then he missed a turn, kept driving. I felt it then. That shift in your chest, when something locks into place and you know you made the wrong choice. I reach for my phone again. Still no signal. That's when I noticed something on the floor of his car. A second phone, cracked screen, powered off, then another and another. I told him I wanted out. He didn't slow down. He sighed like I'd inconvenienced him. I was hoping you wouldn't notice yet, he said. The rain drowned out my breathing. My heart was in my throat. I reached for the door handle, locked. Headlights suddenly appeared ahead of us. A truck, white it's barreling toward us from the opposite direction. The man cursed and slowed. That hesitation saved me. I threw myself against the door, kicking, screaming, clawing until something gave. The car swerved. He slammed the brakes. I tumbled out into the rain and ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop. The police found his car abandoned miles away, not empty. They told me he'd been suspected in multiple disappearances along that road. But they never found him. And they never found the people who owned the phones. I still drive that highway sometimes. Every now and then, when it rains hard enough, I see headlights pull over behind someone broken down on the shoulder. And I keep driving. Because now I know not everyone who stops is there to help. You've been listening to Dark Trail Confessions. If you enjoy these stories, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel and allows me to keep sharing more real horror stories like these. Until next time, stay safe out there and don't ignore that feeling when something doesn't feel right.